Welcome and thank you for joining us for another edition of Coffee with Tom and Joanne. I'm Joanne Taranto.
And I'm Tom Matthews. And today we're continuing our series of onboarding a new seller client. And today we're going to talk about the MLS preparation, how we are going to prepare your home to go into the multiple listing service. That's what MLS stands for. And what we've learned over the last 20 years about how to kind of effectively implement this process. So Joanne, how did our kind of process come up with this? I think this is important background for people.
So what we want is we want a partnership with you. We want to make sure that our interpretation of your home and its features are consistent with what you love the most and what you want other people to see. So it's a collaborative vision. And without knowing you for the last 20 years, potentially, it's hard for us to be on the same page as you. So the process that we have in place, we would call this the editing stage. And part of that editing stage is that we are going to initially choose what we think the house should look like in the MLS listing. So we're going to fill in all the factual stuff, which is, black and white. There's nothing gray. And then we are going to come up with the content. So the remarks, the description of the property, we're going to choose the photos. And so in this process, there's room for error. There's room for improvement. And we want this to be a creative, collaborative process between the two of us.
Yes. And we're going to send drafts. So we're going to create our first MLS draft 1. And we're going to send that to you, the seller, and we want you to review it. And we want you to make your comments. And we want to make sure that we are representing the property the way you want it.
Yep.
We've had sellers who just approve it the first time. They're like, I'm too busy. I can't do anything.
This looks great.
And we've other sellers we've done 7 rounds with, where we just keep going back and forth until we perfect it. And it makes the property represented the way they want the property represented. And we lead with the photo they want to lead with. Sometimes it's the front facing. Sometimes it's an elevated front facing. Sometimes it's a blown up drone. Sometimes it's the backyard. Sometimes it's the kitchen. It's different from every property. It's different for every seller. And this is the opportunity to make this happen. Part of that collaborative nature also came from the fact that Joanne and I built our business really in the 2008 timeframe, when there were a lot of homes that went on the market and failed to sell. They were called expired listings. And we would go in and Joanne and I would interview the sellers. And the biggest feedback that came out of that was that we signed the listing contract with the realtor and then they disappeared. And then the house came on the market and we didn't know how it was being represented. And then it didn't sell. So we said, okay, this is great feedback. When we do our MLS preparation phase, we're going to make sure that the seller has reviewed everything, has okayed it. And then they are kind of, again, part of that process of putting the home on the market. It becomes more collaborative. Because ultimately, if our strategy, our listing strategy, our pricing strategy, our marketing strategy, if something is incorrect or didn't work, we want to be able to collaboratively make a change.
Right.
Whether we wait 14 days, 30 days, 60 days, but it's not going back to the seller and saying, my strategy didn't work. It's going back to the seller saying, our strategy didn't work.
And that's fine. Right now, we're in a market that is much more predictable than some markets of the past. So we don't have as much of that now. But everything is ever changing in the real estate market. And so we've designed this process, this editing process, to make sure that we don't have errors. We're all human. We make mistakes. But if we are, the two of us, our marketing team, plus you, the seller, are all looking over all of the details of the listing, it's much, much more unlikely that we will have left out that there is a whole house generator, or that we didn't mention that you had replaced all the windows last year. These are really important details. And we know that the buyers are in an information now society and they want as much as they can get. Now, with that said, there's limitations to the MLS.
Absolutely. And that's why we have other marketing platforms in other places, because there's only 1,000 characters that are allowed in the MLS and 42 photos. And you may want to showcase more. You may have an 8,000 square foot house. So we may create a property website for your home where we can write a longer description and have more photos.
Or maybe you live in a neighborhood that has a neighborhood pool or neighborhood tennis courts or a neighborhood playground. And we don't necessarily want to waste the photos on your listing of those things, but we want people to know that they're there. So we may create, you know, adjunct pieces of marketing to talk about those areas that are, you know, benefits and amenities of living at your location.
So once you approve the MLS listing, the next phase is that we send everything down to our 10-person marketing team. And our 10-person marketing team is going to create social media graphics.
Mhm.
They're going to create show sheets for your property. They're going to create postcards for your property. They're going to create what we call marketing collateral, and they're going to do it at a super high level.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we're going to send all of that collateral to you to approve. Nothing is getting produced by the Tom and Joanne team without your permission.
Yes, and it's a biphasic approach. So once we get the MLS all set and ready to go, the rest of it is fairly easy because we've all agreed on what photos we like the best. We've all agreed on the remarks and the description of what we think is best. And then we're going to use that MLS as the basis for creating our collateral pieces.
Right.
And those collateral pieces can be digital or printed. So they're different for each property. And once they're created, we then send them back to you for final approval.
Right.
And then once we have that final approval, what happens next?
Next, your home is ready to go on the market. And that
Yeah.
can happen anywhere between 24 hours to when you're ready to list the house.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about this in more detail in our next series of onboarding with a seller client. I want to thank you for watching this edition of Coffee with Tom and Joanne. I'm Tom Matthews.
And I'm Joanne Taranto. Please be sure to like and subscribe.